There is a personality type that psychologists only began studying in 2020. They are more manipulative than a narcissist, more strategic than a Machiavellian, more dangerous than a psychopath. And unlike any of them, they can feel your pain. Not just observe it, not just mimic it, actually feel it as deeply as you do, and then use it against you. This is the dark empath, and by the end of this video, you will understand why researchers now call them the most terrifying personality type ever identified. Because everything you learned about protecting yourself from manipulators does not work on them. For the past 20 years, psychology had a comforting rule. Bad people were bad because they couldn't feel what you felt. Narcissists were too self-absorbed to care. Machiavellians were too cold to empathize. Psychopaths were biologically incapable of remorse. Empathy, we believed, was the shield, the line between the good and the dangerous. If someone could feel your pain, they wouldn't cause it. That belief was wrong. In 2020, researchers at Nottingham Trent University in the United Kingdom published a study that shattered the assumption. Led by psychologist Nadja Haim, the team studied nearly 1,000 participants and discovered a personality subgroup that no one had ever named before. People who scored high on all three Dark Triad traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, but also scored high on cognitive empathy. They could read you, understand you, feel what you were feeling, and still choose to hurt you anyway. The researchers called them dark empaths, and the discovery changed everything psychology thought it knew about evil. Because it turns out, the most dangerous person in the world is not the one who cannot feel your pain. It is the one who can feel it perfectly and uses it as a weapon. Let me show you how. Before we go further, you need to understand something crucial about empathy itself. Empathy is not one thing, it is two. There is affective empathy, the ability to feel what another person feels. When you see someone cry and your own chest tightens, when you watch someone win and joy rises inside you without effort, that is affective empathy. And there is cognitive empathy, the ability to understand what another person is thinking and feeling without necessarily sharing it. It is the empathy of the therapist, the negotiator, the interrogator. Most kind people have both. Most psychopaths have neither. But the dark empath has one without the other. They can see straight into your emotional world. They can map your fears with surgical precision. They can predict how you will react to a word, a silence, a look. But when you cry, they do not cry with you. When you break, they do not break with you. They watch, they understand, they calculate, and then they use what they learned. This is what makes them different from every other dark personality. A traditional psychopath is like a blind swordsman, dangerous but limited. They cannot see the wound they inflict. Their manipulation is often crude, obvious, brute force. A dark empath is a surgeon. They see every nerve, every scar, every trigger, and they know exactly where to cut. They are not manipulating in the dark. They are operating with full visibility. And that is why they are almost impossible to escape. Have you ever known someone who seemed to understand you better than you understood yourself? Someone who noticed things about you no one else did, who remembered offhand comments you'd made months ago, who could look at you across a crowded room and know exactly what you were thinking. At first, it felt magical, almost like fate. Finally, someone who really saw you. But then, slowly, something began to feel off. The insights they had into your soul started to feel less like connection and more like reconnaissance. The compliments felt engineered. The support felt strategic. The apologies felt scripted. And when things went wrong, when you tried to hold them accountable, They knew exactly what to say to make you feel like the villain. Because they didn't just know you, they had studied you. That was not love. That was intelligence gathering. And you were the target. Let me paint you a scene. You're at work. There's a new colleague, charming, sharp, unusually warm. Within a few weeks, they know your entire emotional landscape. They know your fights with your boss, your insecurities about your career, the project that keeps you up at night. You feel safe with them, understood. And then, one day, you notice something strange. Your boss suddenly seems to know your insecurities. Your rivals seem to know your fears. Opportunities that should have come to you go somewhere else. You cannot prove anything. There is no smoking gun. Just a slow, methodical unraveling of your position, done by someone who never once raised their voice, never once said an unkind word, and who still, to this day, greets you with a warm smile every morning. That is a dark empath in a corporate environment. They are not the coworker who screams. They are the coworker who listens. And the information you gave them freely, over coffee, over lunch, in vulnerable moments you thought were safe, becomes the exact material they use to dismantle your standing, one quiet whisper at a time. The dark empath does not attack you. They rearrange the room around you. Now let me show you a different scene, a romantic one. You meet someone, and unlike anyone before, they seem emotionally fluent. They talk about their feelings. They ask about yours. They cry when the moment calls for it. They apologize with what seems like genuine remorse. You've been burned before. You know what a narcissist looks like. Cold, self-absorbed, unable to see you. This person is nothing like that. They cry when you cry. They celebrate your wins. They know exactly what to say when you're at your lowest. For the first time in your life, you feel truly known. But over months, sometimes years, a pattern emerges. Every emotional truth you shared, every wound you disclosed, every fear you confessed, becomes a lever they pull whenever they need to control the outcome of a fight. You start to notice that their apologies always come at the exact moment before you'd walk away, that their tears always arrive when they need forgiveness, that their empathy for you appears only when it benefits them. The realization is devastating because you don't just have to admit they hurt you. You have to admit that the person you thought understood you the best was studying you the whole time. Their empathy was real. It was just weaponized. Now, if you've made it this far, you're already seeing something most people never see. But the most important part of this video is coming up right now. Because the deepest question is not who the dark empath is. It's why they exist at all. Because empathy, real, functional empathy, is supposed to be humanity's most protective trait. It's the thing that stops us from hurting others. It's the reason most of us feel physically sick at the thought of causing pain. So how does a person develop the ability to feel your suffering perfectly and choose to cause it anyway? The answer is disturbing. And once you understand it, you will never look at charm the same way again. Psychologists studying dark empaths have identified something extraordinary about their origins. Most of them were not born this way. Traditional psychopaths often show emotional coldness from a very young age. Their brain scans, even in childhood, reveal reduced activity in the regions that process fear, empathy, and moral emotion. They come into the world with a specific wiring or lack of it. But the dark empath is different. Many dark empaths were once deeply empathetic children, sensitive, perceptive, attuned to the emotional currents of every room they walked into. And then, somewhere along the way, something happened. Usually, an environment that punished their sensitivity, or one that taught them their softness would be exploited. A narcissistic parent, a chaotic household, a social world where the vulnerable were destroyed and the manipulative were rewarded. And in that environment, a survival strategy formed. They kept their emotional intelligence. but they stopped letting it guide their behavior. They learned to see into others without letting others see into them. They learned to feel without acting on feeling. They kept the map, but they threw away the compass. And what emerged, over years, was a personality that had all the perceptiveness of an empath, fused with all the ruthlessness of a predator. This is the darkest twist of all. The dark empath is often not a monster who lacks conscience. They are a person who once had a conscience and made a choice to override it, which means somewhere inside them, they still know what they are doing. They just no longer care. Now let me show you the signs, because the difference between a dark empath and a genuinely kind person is subtle, and it is exactly this subtlety that makes them so dangerous. Sign number 1, their empathy is selective. A real empath feels for everyone, the stranger on the news, the homeless person on the corner, the colleague they barely know. Their empathy is not turned on and off. It hums in the background of their life. A dark empath's empathy activates only when useful. They will move mountains to help someone whose approval they want, and walk past someone whose value to them is zero. Watch how they treat people they gain nothing from. That is who they really are. Sign number 2, their insights feel too accurate. A regular empath will notice your emotions. A dark empath will predict them. They will know what you're feeling before you say a word. They will finish your sentences with unnerving precision. They will introduce topics into conversations that just happen to align perfectly with your unresolved wounds. This is not connection. This is calibration. Sign number 3, their apologies always arrive on schedule. A genuine apology is spontaneous. It comes from a place of internal reckoning. The person suddenly cannot bear what they did, and the apology bursts out of them. A dark empath's apology arrives strategically. It comes precisely at the moment they sense you are about to leave, to escalate, to expose them. Not before, not after. Exactly when the pressure requires it. Sign number 4, you feel drained after being with them, even during the good moments. This is one of the most reliable signals, because real empathy is regenerative. You leave a genuine empath's presence feeling more alive. But a dark empath extracts. Even when the interaction is pleasant, some part of you knows you gave more than you received. You cannot always articulate it, but your nervous system knows. Trust it. Sign number 5, they know your weaknesses better than your allies do. Ask yourself, who in your life could destroy you if they wanted to? For most people, the answer is a small circle of family, best friends, long-term partners, people who have earned their access over years. If someone relatively new to your life could answer that question about you, if they know your deepest fears, your worst insecurities, your most painful memories, pay attention. That level of access should be earned slowly. Anyone who acquired it fast, extracted it fast. And extraction is what predators do. Now here is the paradox that keeps psychologists up at night. Dark empaths are often not perceived as bad people. In fact, they are often perceived as good people, sometimes exceptionally good, because their emotional fluency lets them perform kindness beautifully. They can be the friend who calls when someone is grieving, the coworker who mentors the intern, the partner who remembers every anniversary. They can do all of it, not because they feel it, but because they know it needs to be done. And this creates a defense mechanism no other Dark Triad personality has. When you finally realize what they are and try to warn others, no one believes you, because everyone around them has evidence of their kindness. Everyone has stories of the time they showed up. Everyone has been on the receiving end of their calculated warmth. You become the crazy one, the bitter one, the one who couldn't handle a good thing. And the dark empath sits at the center of this social protection, watching you unravel, and continues to receive the world's love unquestioned. This is why dark empaths often rise to positions of profound social influence. in workplaces, in communities, in families, in religious institutions, in politics. They are believed, trusted, defended, protected, because they built the reputation deliberately over years, knowing exactly what it would cost anyone who ever tried to expose them. So how do you protect yourself from a personality this sophisticated? The old rules do not work. You cannot trust behavior alone because they perform behavior perfectly. You cannot trust apologies because they craft apologies masterfully. You cannot trust the opinions of your mutual circle because they've been curating that circle since the beginning. The defense against a dark empath must be internal. First, trust the fatigue. Your body knows what your mind refuses to admit. If you consistently feel drained, anxious, or foggy after interactions with someone, no matter how pleasant the interactions appeared, take the fatigue seriously. The nervous system does not lie. It recognizes patterns your conscious mind has been trained to override. Second, watch what they do to people they no longer need. The truest measure of a person is how they treat someone who can no longer benefit them. The ex-friend, the former colleague, the person who wronged them years ago. If their pattern is to systematically destroy the reputations of people who are no longer useful to them, that is who they are. You are simply next in line. Third, notice how quickly they map you. Real intimacy requires slow reciprocity. Both people reveal at similar paces. Both people trust in similar increments. If someone knows an unusual amount about you very quickly while revealing very little about themselves, that is not connection. That is asymmetry. And in asymmetry, whoever knows more controls more. Fourth, compare their public self to their private self. The gap between how someone performs in public and how they act behind closed doors is one of the most revealing measurements you can take. A whole person is roughly the same everywhere. A dark empath is dramatically different, magnetic in public, cold in private, generous in group settings, controlling in solitude, loving in front of family, contemptuous when alone with you. If the private version scares you, that is the real version. The public version is the costume. Fifth, and this is the most important one, stop expecting them to reveal themselves. Most people wait for the mask to slip. They think, one day they'll show me who they really are, and then I'll know. But a dark empath's mask does not slip. It is not a mask worn over their face. It is a mask built into their operating system. They will never confess. They will never break down and admit what they are. They will never give you the satisfaction of an unambiguous moment of evil. You have to leave without the evidence. You have to protect yourself before the proof arrives. Because the proof is not going to come. The pattern is the proof. And once you see the pattern, that is enough. You do not owe them one more chance to prove your instincts wrong. Your instincts have already spoken. Listen to them the first time. Now let me offer you one last piece of truth, because I know some of you are listening to this video feeling a slow chill of recognition, realizing that someone in your life, someone close, someone trusted, fits this description. The recognition is painful because it forces you to reinterpret years of memories. Every kind moment becomes suspect. Every gift becomes a strategy. Every apology becomes a performance. You are not going crazy. You are waking up. The grief you are about to feel is real because you did not just lose a relationship. You lost the version of that person you believed in. And you have to mourn a person who never actually existed because the person you loved was a character they played. This grief is worse than losing someone to death because in death, the love is preserved. In this, the love itself has to be re-examined, rewritten, sometimes deleted. Give yourself time, but do not give yourself doubt, because the doubt is what they trained you to feel. The doubt is what keeps you in the trance. The doubt is the last weapon they get to use, even after you leave. You saw what you saw. You felt what you felt. Your instincts had reasons, even if you could not name them at the time. Trust the version of yourself that noticed. That version was not paranoid. That version was awake. We began this video with a question. Why is the dark empath more terrifying than any other dark personality? Now you have the answer. Because they are not broken people who cannot feel. They are aware people who chose to weaponize what they felt. Because their intimacy is not an accident, it is a strategy. Because their kindness is not a virtue, it is currency. Because their empathy, the very thing we believe was proof of goodness, has become in them the sharpest instrument of harm ever developed by the human mind. The line between saint and predator was supposed to be empathy. The dark empath erased that line. And that is why, from now on, you will judge people not by what they can feel, but by what they choose to do with what they feel. Because feeling is not virtue. Choice is. If this video showed you something you had never seen before, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach the people who need this message most. Subscribe if you want more content that pulls back the curtain on the darkest edges of human psychology. And in the comments below, I want to know, have you ever encountered a dark empath in your own life? What was the moment you realized their empathy was not what it seemed? In my next video, I'm going to reveal how to spot a dark triad personality in under 5 minutes. The subtle behavioral tells that trained psychologists use to identify these individuals, often before the person even opens their mouth. You do not want to miss it. Until then, stay awake, stay aware. And remember, the sharpest blade in the world is the one that knows exactly where you bleed.